All right, everybody, I am back. I told you before. Look, I told you this season I'm going to bring in a bunch of people that I know you're going to like because a lot of times when you do a show like this, you do shows, you bring on people, you think they're cool, but these are people I know were cool. In fact, these are people I know, especially this man. I've known this man for let's see, since 1935. Uh, ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen, comedian, actor, old friend of yours truly, Mr. Nick Colletta.
S. Anthony, how you doing, my friend?
Not bad at all. Good. So, it's been a long time. We were talking right before the show, uh, about how long we've known each other, and it's a weird thing because when I before we became friends on Facebook, a mutual friend of ours, who shall remain nameless because he doesn't want to be named. He said, "Hey man, you gotta talk to Nicoletta, man. He wants to be friends on Facebook, Nicoletta." And the thing is, when we met, of course I knew what your last name was, but I never used it because you were always Nikki, right? So he
Right.
says Nick Coletta, and I'm going, who? It, why is he recommending me to? I don't know the. Who is? Come on, man. Come on, dude. And then I went to Facebook and looked at the picture, and of course I'm going, of course.
Always was known as Nicky Attitude,
Mm-hmm.
and I got that name. It's a funny story. Stand up in the late '80s. I think you started before me. I
Yeah,
think you started in what '86.
yeah. January '86.
Yeah, I started in '88, and I'm not going to lie. I was extremely lucky to have one of my good childhood friends own a comedy club.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into comedy one night. I went up there on a date with another couple, and my buddy that owned the club uh, put me right up front, comped me, sent drinks over the whole bit. And after the show, I went up to him and I said, I'll just use first name. I said, Johnny. I said, you know what? I think I could do this. And he said, I'll tell you what. Goes, wait 5 minutes and I'll put you on. I'll make you the house MC just so you can get a taste of what it's like to stand in front of a live crowd. And I said, okay. So I worked on my 5 minutes and it wasn't that good. It was, I got up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to blah, blah, blah. We got a great show for you tonight. Did the whole thing. Got up in front of a live crowd. I did that 8 days, 8 shows a week for a year. I
Mm-hmm.
got the most stage time probably out of any Philly comic. Now, it wasn't much time, but it was getting in front of a live crowd and feeling comfortable and finding myself, which was key, which was key. And Ben were sitting on his roof one day, and I had about, I don't know, about maybe 15 minutes or something like that. And we had all these acts coming down from New York, and there were characters were big back then. You had Dice Man, you had Kinnison, you had um, Gallagher. I mean, just like guys with that weren't going by their real name, even though I think Gallagher's his last name. But you just had characters. And I said to my buddy Johnny, I said, Johnny, I said, I think I should do a character. And he looked at me and he said, "You're Nicky Attitude." And I could feel the little light bulb go off over my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, dude, you are right. You are right. So I started writing about things that give me an attitude. And that's how I got started doing stand up. And last year, before the pandemic, I got one show in. And it was, I remember the date, it was February 22nd. The last time I've been on stage was February 22nd of 2020. And that had given me, I started in '88. 32 years of
Mm-hmm.
working. I have a show scheduled this September, which I hope everybody's pretty much vaccinated by then. I just got my second shot
Well, how?
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday. Okay. Which one did you get?
I got Pfizer. You know,
Pfizer.
I
Okay.
helped. I was holding out for the Johnson Johnson when the vaccine first came out. I was a little skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
and not that I'm an anti-vaxxer or anything like that. It was just like, wow, wait a minute. Usually it takes like 4 or 5 years to develop these things, and boom, they got it out in less than a year. You know, let me see if people have like bulbos growing out of their forehead after this and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Let me wait, and then the Johnson Johnson came out, and I said, well, I'm just going to go. I'll go with that one. Just
Mm-hmm.
why, get one shot instead of two. Makes perfect sense. Well, then the little thing went on with Johnson and Johnson, and I'm going through the Department of Health trying to find something here and there, and they wanted to send me like across the city, down to the convention center, and they were doing shots right down the street from me.
Yeah.
And one day I just logged on to this website and I found a place walking distance from my house. And that's where I wound up going.
I came really close to getting the J&J vaccine myself. I was a day away from getting it when the incident happened, and I got an email later that day going, no, you are not taking that. And then right after that, I got another one for Moderna. Because I was wondering why they, because like I said, you got to get everybody jammed up because, as it turns out, the Eagles are going to be 100% capacity from what I just saw before I called you. So that ought to be good.
Will it be? That's the
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Will it
that's what
be?
it said. I'm because it's September and they're kind of lifting everything now, and it's everybody should be walking around. I'll be honest with you. If you got to put a mask on to watch them knock somebody down, I'm okay with it. you know,
Oh, I'm fine with wearing a mask. Matter of fact, I'll probably wear a mask well into 2022.
mm-hmm,
I don't have a problem with that. I always used to see Asian people wearing masks,
mm-hmm.
and I always thought it was a little weird. But here, they were so concerned about getting other people sick because they weren't feeling well that they wore the mask. That's how much consideration they had for their fellow human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Why people in this country cannot adopt that, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it's
Yeah,
it's just the stupidity level in this country amazes me.
I've only
So
run
I got
across
to ask
one.
you.
Have you run
I have
across
to ask
any?
you,
Go ahead.
what's that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Anti-maskers?
Yeah, have you run into any?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I don't go. To be honest, I say, Anthony, I don't go. I haven't gone out of my house uh, too often. The first few months I was quarantined. I'm a type 1 diabetic,
Mm-hmm.
so I had a target on my back.
Oh yeah.
I had a major league target on my back. I mean, I remember like the first 2 weeks of lockdown. I mean, when they told us lockdown, nobody go out. I'd look out the window of my house and I'd see somebody on the street. I go to my wife, "What's this guy up to?
Yeah.
What's he doing? What's he trying to break into cars? What's he doing? What's he doing out on the road?" It was crazy. I mean, just the level of anxiety was just absolutely nuts. And then you had, the fools with the toilet paper and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh, it was so crazy as I sat in my room with 300 rolls, but it was crazy. And now they're hoarding gas because of the pipeline breakdown because
It's
of the
like, guy,
hackers. They're
it,
hoarding gas.
like guys, it's going to be a week. Just fill up and chill. You know what I mean? You ain't
Yeah.
going anywhere anyway. But it's really weird because when I went to the supermarket and everybody was grabbing all the toilet paper, which I thought was, I'm going, how dirty are your behinds? I mean, calm down, right? They, I went straight to the meat. I was getting actual food, and so while these fools were getting in the knife fights over hand sanitizer, uh, you know, I'm going,
It,
you do realize you can just wash your hands, right? I'm picking the food. I'm picking up sausages, meats, bacon. I'm just picking up food, and I'm walking to the car, and it's me and six other people actually had food in our carts, and the rest of these idiots, had toilet paper to the year 2057.
yeah, yeah, it was crazy. I remember when I was in the supermarket when I thought it was getting really bad. I had, I think it was my wife was making a meatloaf and she
Mm-hmm.
wanted some meat for meatballs, and I had 2 packs of ground beef, and the woman said to me, "I'm only allowed to sell you one."
Yeah.
And they started rationing the food,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going, "Oh wow, this is getting serious. This is getting serious. This is a road in the 60 some years of my life that I've never been down before,
Mm-hmm.
and how am I going to adjust to it?"
It's
And
really
it
weird.
was, yeah, it was strange in the very beginning, but it looks like now that we're trying to get out of it and we're making progress, and hopefully we can get back on with our lives. I mean, I feel like I lost a year of life,
Mm-hmm.
and at my age, that's not a good thing. I mean, I would have given you 17 for my 18th year, but don't be taking my 61st.
Let me have this one, damn it.
Yeah, really, come on.
I actually know what I'm doing now. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. It takes you 40 to realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm up there too, my friend. I'm 52.
Oh, you're a pup. You're a
Yeah, yeah,
pup.
yeah. That's the funny thing about it. When we all started, I was like the baby of all of our friends.
You know, you know when you first contacted me and asked me to do your show,
Mm-hmm.
I was reflecting on your stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was like West Side Story with the clubs. You had the Jets, the Sharks.
Yeah.
You know, the one club had this clique, and the other club had this clique, and
Mm-hmm.
the club I was at up in the far northeast, out of all the like the cliquey places, we let everybody on stage. We didn't have, oh, well, you belong to this guy. Da 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 da. You can't do that. I remember reflecting on your stuff, and I'm going to compare you to somebody. I know you're not. You're probably will poo-poo it and say, no, no, he was great. And he was a great comic, was Patricia O'Neill. Because
Mm-hmm.
you used to do that type of stuff. You used to get up there and talk. It wasn't like joke, joke, joke. You would just talk, and, some of the stuff you were talking about seemed like things that happened recently in your life and stuff like that. And I remember you being like that type of comic. It wasn't, you could just do your jokes. There were things that you wanted to discuss. Am I wrong about that, or am I
Nope.
remembering right?
Not. I got news for you. I'm still like that.
So good, good. Well, that's who you are, man. That's what you're supposed to do.
I just, to me, I'll be honest with you. It was a combination of things. One, I was very, very young. So I didn't necessarily have lots of life experience. So I had to talk about what happened recently because, quite frankly, I was recent, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah,
as
but
an
you were
older
funny.
person, oh, thank you, I appreciate that, brother. We had that in common, by the way. But as it is now, as an older person, you know, you have lots of life experience, so you can just pull. You know what I'm talking about. You've been doing stand up
Oh yeah.
almost as long. You just have so much. George Carlin used to say that you, as an older person, you have a bigger filter to push your life experiences through. So what comes out on the other side has more texture to it. I'm paraphrasing him when I say it that way. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is just that, when you were talking about the West Side Story things, I literally at first I heard that, but I said, I'm wondering if that actually holds true. So I completely ignored it and went wherever I wanted to. Right? And nobody said anything. I mean, it's literally like I would go to the works, I would go to the outlet, I would go wherever I wanted, and all they would do was not put my name in the newspaper. They
Well,
never did
I
anything to me.
I'm now running the club up in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
When I would go into town, I would go to. I first started at the Works.
Yeah,
The
me too.
very first outside of the place I was working at, I went to the works and I bombed. Well, I'm going to admit it. I bombed. But I remember saying, and this stays with me 30 some years later. I remember saying, if so and so can make it in this business, I know I can. Now, I'm not going to name anybody to protect. I want to protect the guilty, so I
Mm-hmm.
won't name any names. But I remember saying that, and then I did an interview about 6 months ago, and the interviewer asked me, said, "So, what is your greatest accomplishment in stand-up?" And I was thinking about it, and I said, "Well, listen, a lot of comics think they failed if they don't get a sitcom or something like that." I said, my greatest accomplishment in doing stand-up for 32 years is to continuously get booked.
Mm-hmm.
When they're booking you and they're wanting you to perform, you're doing something right. I'm still making people laugh. I'm still making people laugh. And to all the comics out there, and I know a lot listen to your show,
Mm-hmm.
if you're still working, man, you're not a failure. You have succeeded. You know, S. Anthony, this craft that we do, just the stand up craft. I'm in a couple other things, but the stand up craft is without a doubt the hardest thing to do. To go into a room and make 200 strangers laugh,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing you, is the hardest thing in the world to do. So every comic should pat themselves on the back because you have accomplished something that most people cannot. I'll talk with a plumber or something like that, and I always watch them. And it's not I'm watching them to review their work or, make sure they're not monkeying around. I'm watching to learn. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
see how you're tightening that pipe so next time I don't have to call you and spend $90 an hour.
Exactly.
So, the comics that are working continuously, you are a success no matter what. Doesn't matter if you get a sitcom. Very few get a sitcom. And I always see these comics, oh, I didn't get a sitcom yet. Like, dude, you're still working. Stop your bitching. You're still working. You're still getting paid for doing something. You're making more money in a half hour than people make working 8 hours. So stop.
That used to always crack me up as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, where I would watch my contemporaries working at McDonald's or something, and I would do one set on the weekend. You know what I mean? You remember what they paid back then, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah. And some of them still do.
yeah, 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 oh yeah. Some of them, some of them have. Some of them have really taken it seriously. You see some of the new I call some of these places. For those of you listening in outside of the United States, um, we call A rooms. A rooms are basically comedy clubs that bring in the biggest of the big. You know, they'll bring in people with TV credits and things of that nature. That's a term that we use here in the United States. I don't know what you call it out in other countries, but that's the term we use in the United States. So, but some of the clubs I've seen that have come in are A plus rooms because I saw one club had Dave Chappelle in there,
Hmm.
and people like that. I'm going, why is he? I mean, this guy could play theaters, but he's playing multiple nights at the comedy club. So some of these places are really serious about being comedy clubs now and are paying real money like back in the day because there was a time period as you know where the money went down a lot, and it was a big pain in the buttocks. But it seems that when you go to the A rooms and the A plus rooms, they still are paying the way they should be paying.
Well, I'll tell you what. The You're absolutely right about back in the day with the pay.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good money back in the late 80s,
Mm-hmm.
early 90s. That's when you had comedy on TV left and right. You had MTV had their comedy show. A&E had what was that one Bud Friedman did,
Oh,
or
an evening at the Improv.
Evening at the Improv. You had a lot of comedy, and you know what was funny? That's Anthony. I'm sure it happened to you many a times. after the show, people would come up to you and say, "You guys were much funnier than the ones on TV." Do you,
Yeah.
that ever happen to you?
Every
Yeah,
every show.
every every show. It's well, first off, we're allowed to be, go over the edge here in the club. They're not allowed to on TV,
Mhm.
and the language might be a little different that you can relate to, and stuff like that. But yeah, back in the early '80s and early '90s, that money was really good. I remember, especially the club I worked at. We had top-notch bookers from New York booking the acts,
Mhm.
and he was bringing in people like Shirley Hempfield from
Mhm. What's happening?
what's what's happening. We're bringing top-notch headliners into the club, and we were selling out. We were selling
Mhm.
out. I think we held 260, and at one point, now not with the top headliner because they were only Friday and Saturday. We would do three shows, one Friday night, two Saturday.
Mhm.
But then we were doing one on Wednesday, the open micer on Wednesday night. Thursday night was the old Mitchell's, my good late dear friend Joe Donato
Mhm.
buffet special. Thursday night show, we would do that up at the club I worked at, and then we would do Friday, three on the weekend. So at first I was getting 5 nights of stage time. Then it went to 8. Then we what's it called? A competitor, won't name names, but he owned a string of clubs in the city, had the fire marshal come into the room, called them, and they basically cut our room in half.
Mhm.
We went from 260 to like 170 or something like that.
Mhm.
We lost,
A chunk.
1,500 a show.
Yeah.
It was like, so now the headliners came down a little bit. We still got top acts from New York. We got most of our headliners from New York,
Mhm.
and a lot of good Philly comics grew on that stage there as well as downtown. You had the very funny, and I all due respect to Ralph Harris. I heard your interview with Ralph,
Mhm.
and I think I reached out to you and told you that Ralph, without a doubt, was one of the most liked comics in our club.
Mhm.
Without a doubt, the likability was off the charts. He was funny. He was witty. He was right on point. I mean, the people that came out to see him loved him, and we had a lot of acts like that.
Mhm.
And good fan reception up at that room. That was a beautiful room. I know you played that room. I think you thought that was a nice room. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I never had a. It's like the place we're referring to. I got some really, really good tapes out of there. I mean,
hmm
you know what I mean? I mean, the kind of tapes that when the bookers saw them, they called you back with dates. you know, like like a day, like the package would arrive in their city, and the next day you would get a phone call and their book was open. So yeah, that was a good place.
yeah, that was a really good place. It was a lot of acts besides yourself taped their performances there.
Hmm.
A lot. We always had a camera set up in the back.
Yeah, you'd have to be an
Somebody was.
idiot not to make a tape there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Now I want to ask you this because this is a weird thing because I know stand up Nick, right? One more thing before because I wanted to move to your acting, but I want to find out this. You're in the house. You're married. How close to killing you was your wife because you guys were stuck in the house together?
Well, look, I'm not going to say this because she's going to hear the interview or anything like that, but she is without a doubt my soulmate, my life and blood for the reason I live. Without a doubt. I mean, I am an extremely lucky man, and the only reason I met her is through comedy. I did a show with a comic back in the early '90s. I don't want to name names because I might get him in trouble. but I did a show with him down in Wildwood, New Jersey, and we became friends. You know, we started hanging out. I find out that he doesn't live too far from me, and he was a real partier. And back in the day, I partied, and you know, we would hang out. I was collecting unemployment at the time, so you know, he was a headliner. You know, traveling, doing the road, and so he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, listen, my girlfriend has tickets for the Yankees. Now this is the old Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go?" And you know, took me a split second to say yes. I mean, who doesn't want to walk in the house that Ruth built?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, yeah, of course. So his girlfriend winds up bringing a coworker who happens to be my wife now, and we hit it off. But it wasn't one of those, you know. The main thing for young people out there is, if you really want a woman to last the rest of your life, don't sleep with her the first night, because you're gonna lose any kind of respect for her. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure some one night stand, you know, the first nighters have lived and prospered throughout their life and everything, but I took it real slow. And I wanted to, as Bill Murray says in Caddyshack, I wanted to get into her pelt and walk around. I wanted to find out what she was about.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God I did, because without a doubt, besides the birth of my son, the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. She does everything for me. I mean, she saved my life 20 times with my diabetes. Came home, found me passed out on the floor. Would know that I'm going into a hypoglycemic panic attack type of thing, and she'd revive me and get me some sugar and bring me back. And I mean, the woman has done everything for me, and I just want to pay her back in every way I can. And I am so lucky that comedy has brought me a woman to spend the rest of my life with. Now, we're getting ready next month to celebrate 22 years. I've been with her for the following month. July will be 27 years.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thing to hear, my friend. I'm happy for you. Genuinely.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky, as Anthony. I mean, extremely lucky to you know, I've been in love, but I didn't know what love was. Do you understand
Yes, I do.
what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I came from a very, very, very horrible childhood. I had a horrible childhood. A lot of physical and mental abuse, and never saw love as a child. My parents obviously got divorced. Always saw hate. Always saw hate. Never saw love.
It looks foreign to you when you see it, doesn't it? In the beginning.
Oh
You
my
don't even,
God.
because it's like when I've been in a relationship with a couple of ladies that had really bad childhoods, as you described, and it was really an interesting thing, because the nicer I was to them, the more they were waiting for the other shoe to drop,
Of course.
because they're
Of
going,
course.
okay, every time everybody else has been nice to me, I'd relax, and then boom, something horrible would happen. Well, nothing horrible was going to happen, because I was never going to do anything horrible to them. But unfortunately, because of the soil they came from, there was so much poison in it that it took, by the time they figured out how to squeeze it out, they were already had moved on to someone else, because I just couldn't, it just wouldn't work. So I'm assuming from what you've said to me that it's had to have been similar for you. You see someone and they're nice to you, and you're looking at them and you're going, yeah, what are you setting up?
Yeah. It's funny you talked about the soil, because during the pandemic, when it first happened, I said, all right, it's going to be a while. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to kill your time? Now, I retired early, and I figured the smartest thing for me to do is my wife is 11 and a half years younger than me.
Hmm.
So she's still working and she covers me medically with medical insurance with her job.
Hmm.
So the smartest thing for me to do, I thought when I retired was I got to get up when she gets up for work. I can't be laying in bed every day. See you, hon. I'll see you when you get home. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I
No.
couldn't do that. So, I go down, if her lunch is made, I get it out, or I'll, make her a sandwich. I start her car up for her. Wintertime, I clean her car up, hey, get your lunchbox, go. Let's
Hmm.
go. Get me my health insurance. So I wanted to, I wanted to just be productive. So I would get up early, and I figured when the pandemic hit, what do I want to do? So the first idea I had, and it was too hard, was I was going to teach myself sign language. I said, I'm going to teach myself sign language. It could help out in my acting career. I can get a job, if, signing somebody in a scene or whatever. And I tried doing it online through YouTube, and it was just too hard. Now I'm going to take a course once the pandemic is over with and everything, because I set that goal and I got to achieve it. Once I
Hmm.
set a goal, I have to try to achieve it. And I failed, and it haunts me a little bit. The only thing I learned in sign language, what I learned something really good, was how to sign giving somebody the bird without giving them just the middle finger.
Ah.
So they don't know what I'm saying to them. Yeah, so it's like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's deaf. I gotta be okay to this guy. And here I'm saying, F you, and I'm signing it. You know what I mean? So I learned one good thing in the sign language thing, but it was extremely hard to pick up. So I had to go to other things to do to kill my time.
It's Well, the thing is, you started acting later, and this is what I wanted to say, because I know, like I said, you started acting later. But the thing I always thought was interesting was when we start doing something later, and people think that it's late. I just think an art is an art, and whenever you decide to start doing it, it's fine. You know what I mean? Because we've both seen people start to do stand up comedy at 50 and 60, and technically to us they would be a baby comic because they just started. But I don't see any problem with somebody starting, acting at 50 or 60, or stand up at 50 or 60, or picking up a guitar for the first time at 50 and 60. It's nothing but a human being expressing themselves and deciding to grow and stretch and evolve. I think it's actually commendable.
Let me tell you how I fell into that. And you're right. Everything you just said is absolutely true. This is how I fell into it. I'm doing a stand-up show, right? After the show, a guy comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, listen, we're having auditions tomorrow for this web series we're filming. I think you'd be really good for a part." And I'm going, "Okay." And so I'm listening to him. And he gives me the address. He goes, "Listen, if you're interested, this is the address. This is the time." So I go home and I'm talking to my wife. My wife practically went to every one of my comedy shows that I've
Mm-hmm.
ever done, and I'm talking to her about it. I said, "You know what? I think I'm going to just go and check it out, see what happens." So the role was to be a hitman in a web series. I was playing a hitman for the Philadelphia crime family.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to the auditions, and I'm talking to the writer director, and doing some stupid jokes about being a hitman and more hits than Pete Rose,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
stupid stuff. Right? That Tuesday, this was a Saturday morning. That Tuesday, I get a phone call from the director. He goes, "Listen, the role of the hitman, I'm not going to use you in that." And I'm thinking to myself, "You had to tell the jokes, you idiot. You had to tell the jokes,
Mm-hmm.
right?" He goes, "I want you to play the head crime boss of Philadelphia." And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I says, "Listen," I says, "you know that I've never acted before, correct?" He says, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll direct you. Don't worry about it." I go, "Okay." Okay, you want to go down this road? Okay, I'll try it. So I talked to a couple people, and the one guy gave me the greatest tip. He goes, acting is just having a conversation, just having a conversation. So we filmed. There were 6 episodes. This was series, the second series of this web series, the second season. They did
Mm-hmm.
6 episodes. I was in 4 of them,
Hmm.
and I remember going to opening night to the premiere, and I'm sitting there with my wife, and the big screen, and I'm watching myself. Right afterwards, as soon as the lights come up, I turn to my wife. I go, "If I'm going to do this, I got to take acting lessons." I says, because I saw myself just waiting to deliver my lines, just waiting for my turn to talk.
Yeah.
And it looked, you could see it. You could see it on screen. And I said, listen, hon, I really have to go to school for this. So that was in 15, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So I go online and I'm looking for acting schools. I'm looking for acting schools. I see this one school called Playhouse West,
Yeah.
and it teaches this Sanford Meisner. I know you know who that is.
Yes, I do.
Who's it? Yeah. And I said, I read up on his technique about listening, and I figured, if you're going to take acting lessons, the first one you should take is learn how to listen, right? It's common
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I go and I start taking classes, and they were night classes, and they were from 6:30 to 9:30, 3-hour class. So I did an audit at the school. You do an audit, you sit in the back of the school, you watch the actors do their scenes and whatever other exercises. So afterwards, I go up to the teacher. He's auditing me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
why do you want to get in acting? I go, well, I've done stand up for, I think it was like 27 years by then, 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and I always wanted to be an actor. I said, I didn't have a deep passion. I said, but I filmed something. I saw how bad I was, but I really want to do this. And he was happy with that answer because, once I used to sit next to him and I would hear people get audited and I want to be famous, and he wouldn't even sign them up.
Of course.
That's my job's not to get you famous. My job is to get you to become a really good actor that everybody wants to work with. That's my job. So he would turn down people. So I'm glad that I answered the right questions when he audited me. So I started classes. That January, I started in November. That January, I said to my wife, I said, hon, I want to retire. I was 56 and a half years old. I said, I want to retire and I'm going to pursue this. I said, I can get my pension from the Teamsters. I had just done 25 years with the Teamsters. I said, I can get my pension with the Teamsters in 5 months when I turn 57 in May. I said, I got plenty of money in the bank to carry me till then. It won't be a problem, blah, blah, blah. We had a real low mortgage, no problem. She goes,
Mm-hmm.
do it. She was the one that almost forced me to retire because she saw that I had a passion for something and she wanted me to pursue it. That's how good of a wife I had.
Mm-hmm.
Not once did the question come up, do you think we'll be able to make it? It was, do it. Go do it. So I retired from my job in January. So they had classes during the day and at night for beginners. They had 12 to 3 and then 6:30 to 9:30. So when I retired, I went to the 12 to 3 class. And I told the teacher, I said, listen, I'm retired now. I have nothing to do. I want to take the night class too. And he didn't poo-poo it. He didn't say anything. He just, okay, we'll see. Because he's seen actors come and go.
Mm-hmm.
People quit so easy when they find out how hard it is. So I would do the 12 to 3 class. And then instead of driving home, I would stay down by the school. And there was an Arby's and a Dunkin' Donuts. And I would get classmates to go there and we would rehearse. In the beginning of Meisner, it's repetition. Like I would say to you, you're wearing a black sweater. And you would say to me, you're wearing a black sweater. Not, I'm wearing a black sweater. Exactly what I say, just to get the discipline of listening. You're wearing a black sweater. You got to say back to me, you're wearing a black sweater. Then it gets personal. When I say you're wearing a black sweater, after a little while, he'll change it up. He'll say, I'd make it personal. Then you would say, I'm wearing a black sweater. I'd say, you're wearing a black sweater. And then you got to try to pick up how I feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was into that, man. I was hooked. I was hooked right away. So I started taking the night class. But then I was rehearsing 3 hours in between. And then on the Mondays and Wednesdays when advanced classes, I would hook up with somebody and we would rehearse all day. So then I got moved to the advanced class. And that was Monday and Wednesday, and that was from 12 to 3. And I showed up Tuesday. He told me the week before, you're in advanced class next week, so I'm going to start you in advanced class next week. I said, oh, great, thanks. Well, I show up Tuesday for like the beginner's class. It's, pretty much beginner. There's some advanced people there that can't make the night, can't make Mondays and Wednesdays. So they would come on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I started doing the day class Tuesday, rehearse 3 hours, the night class Tuesday, come back Wednesday, do the morning class, the advanced class, rehearse for a few hours, and then go home. So I was doing at one point 6 classes. I did over 600 classes
Mm-hmm.
in 3 years. I got that. It was like back at the comedy club where I had my own stage.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting stage time. I was getting up in front of people and acting the proper way. So I got really, I'm not going to say, I'm not patting myself on the back and saying good, but I learned the craft. It took me 3 years. I'm still learning every day, but I had to jump because I was putting in so much time rehearsing. And I was voted at one point in class the hardest working person in class. And the teacher got on the young students.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, you're going to let this old man outwork you? And then I look at the teacher like, old man? I got you by a year. Who you calling an old man, And so that's how I got into the acting. And I've been having so much fun with it.
It's like it's like very similar to martial arts. I think they call it the see, think, do reflex. Like when you see something, you think about it, then you do it. And when you do enough repetitions, like Bruce Lee says, I don't hit, it hits all by itself. You don't have to think about certain things anymore because you've burned that record groove into your brain so deeply that you can just react. Because I've seen myself in some classes I took back in the day. Those 3 hour classes in the beginning seemed long as hell. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
but I saw myself in the guy was facing me, I was facing him, and there was a mirror behind his head, and I could see myself. I call it double dutching. You know, what I mean, when you see little girls doing double dutch and they're just kind of jumping, waiting for their opportunity to get between the ropes.
Right.
I could see myself just like you caught yourself double dutching on film. You were waiting for your chance to get your line in instead of paying attention to what this guy was saying or not paying enough attention. And I was doing the same thing. So when you said that, I I almost chuckled because it took me back to the early '90s, and I'm looking at young me. This guy's talking to me this long monologue, and I'm waiting for my monologue that follows his monologue, and all I remember was his last words were "in the world," and I didn't pay a damn attention to anything he said. I, I was just waiting to hear "in the world," and then diving in with my
Yes. Yes.
with my because I was afraid I was going to forget things. It wasn't any disrespect to the other performer, but I, I knew how to write a stand-up act, and I knew that you had months to hone, perfect, and sharpen it. This is somebody handing me a piece of paper, going, "Yeah, memorize that and say it tomorrow."
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that's not That's not an easy thing to do. In fact, I haven't done it in a while, so I'd probably have to start from scratch almost. But uh, it was as soon as you said that that's what you saw on film, I remember that. Um, and I just remember doing the first hour of class. I'm going, man, that was a good class. Okay, now we're gonna. There's more.
Yeah, see, I'm an advantage now because of being retired. When I
Mm-hmm.
get a script, I have 8 to 10 hours during the day. My wife leaves at 7. She comes home at 5.
Mm-hmm.
I have 8 hours during the day to just read the script all day long and rehearse it. I take it in chunks, and I'll do like 2 paragraphs a day. I'll memorize it,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing about uh, memorizing things, you learn all these lessons. And I'll tell you what, YouTube's the greatest teacher in the world. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But read it out loud. Hear yourself saying the words. Just hear yourself saying the words. When you get a script or even your stand-up, like when I first started stand-up, God told me, get in front of a mirror and do your act. Hear
Mm-hmm.
yourself telling the jokes. Make a face on your punchline, in the mirror, and remember that face. And when you do your punchline, you want to make that face to boost the punchline, then do it. So if you do your monologues, your speeches, your dialogue, however people want to phrase it, do it out loud. Say it out loud. Listen to yourself talk. Hear it. Hear the words. Don't just read it. Hear them. So I take like a paragraph or two every day, and then I advance on to the next day, and then the next day. And then my wife, she reads with me. All the parts that I've ever done, I pretty much either I'll call somebody, I'll call another actor over to the house,
Mm-hmm.
or my wife will read. And just to get me to know my lines, she'll read the other lines. And then when I want to act it out, I'll bring an actor in, and I do it with different actors just to get different feels of where I could go with this.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta build your character up, and that's the hard part is building your character up to the crescendo of
Mm-hmm.
the end of the movie or the end of the play.
This is what.
It's
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you this because this is something that I noticed on my end. Um, when you started to get more proficient at acting, and you're still doing stand up, did you notice something that I noticed in myself was that my act, I could see the techniques and skills that I had learned from the classes had slid right into the stand up. you know?
You you
Yeah.
you want to know something? It's funny
Mm-hmm.
you bring that up because a lot of the comics had told me that. A lot of the comics I worked with
Mm-hmm.
said, "Dude, I could really see your acting skills in your stand up now," and I didn't realize it, but my wife even said it too. Not only am I more comfortable up there, but um, like in acting, you shouldn't play the lines, you shouldn't play the words, but in comedy, you should.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing the words more. I was giving the jokes more life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about on that. And I personally really didn't notice it until people actually told me about it. And then I had my wife film me one night, and I watched it, and I watched another tape, which is basically, comics basically have, the same act depending on the time frame and
Mm-hmm.
what they had added in and stuff like that. That's why I always liked your stuff because it was always usually something different. It wasn't, the 5 cookie jokes and then 3 7-Eleven jokes and I'm off. You know what I mean? It was,
Yeah.
well, like I said, watching Patrice O'Neill and stuff. I've seen this before. I saw this in the '80s. You know,
Yeah. It's a weird thing because it's like I didn't. It's like when you're very young, you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't have. I mean, I just saw what I saw on TV, and I didn't understand. Like the techniques that would I would learn later on. I just did what I wanted to do, and then I grabbed the techniques later. So by the time I figured the techniques out, I had already decided what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. But when you watch the tapes of yourself, because I watched old tapes of myself after the acting and the stage classes, and it didn't look like the same guy up there.
Right.
I mean, it was so different. It was almost like it's like the acting, even as a young person, acting on stage or in film or taking those classes. First of all, the simple fact that the ability to get those skills requires repetition, hard work, and maturity. It literally makes you a more mature performer as a stand-up to acquire those skills.
Yeah,
And I
I
wasn't
agree
prepared
with
for
you
that.
100%. Yeah, I agree with you. My teacher had a saying, he said, every day you either get a little better or a little worse. So if you don't keep working on it, you're going to get worse. So, and what you said earlier about, you being a young guy in comedy and you didn't have many life experiences and stuff like that, I'll tell you what, that helps you out more in acting than it does comedy.
Hmm.
Things for you to draw on. Things like if you got, a sad scene or something like that, me being 62, I just turned 62, me being 62, I have a ton to draw on, especially the horrible childhood I had,
Hmm.
the first marriage that I had, beautiful girl, beautiful woman. I was stupid. I was dumb. I didn't know how to love a woman.
Hmm.
I messed that up. And, but we have a great relationship now. My son is married. I actually had, it's funny, my son got married in Cancun and the wedding reception, we're at the reception and I'm sitting next to my son's new brother-in-law and both of my wives were up on the dance floor dancing with each other. And I turned to the brother-in-law and I said to him, I go, hey man, how many guys can say two wives dancing with each other? No problem. I go, maybe a Mormon, but I don't even know if they're allowed to dance
Yeah.
together. But I mean, so we had that kind of relationship. It's good. I made all my apologies and I needed to apologize to the woman. I just was not ready. And you know what got me ready? To be honest with you, I had a horrible father, but I had a good dad, my stepdad, that married my mother after my father abandoned us.
Hmm.
My mother came down with cancer in '87, and she was given 2 months to live.
Yeesh.
So my stepdad went to his employer, and my mother wanted to die at home. It was a must.
Hmm.
Do not leave me in a hospital to die alone. Okay. So my stepdad takes a leave of absence from work. Well, I follow suit. I go into my boss. I said, listen, my mom's dying of cancer. I got to be there for her. I need to take a leave of absence from work. Thank God I had a nice enough boss that said, okay.
Hmm.
Now, I was out of work for 9 weeks without a paycheck. I did a 12-hour shift. My stepdad did a 12-hour shift. And I saw what love meant by what he did for my mother. And it taught me a lesson. And he passed away recently, and I said it in his eulogy that he was the man that taught me how to love. And it took me 28 years to learn that lesson, how to love a woman. 28 friggin' years it took me. And that's why my relationship with my wife now is so good because, look, dude, if you want to have a good marriage, it's like having a child. You got to put that other person before you. You got to stop being selfish and you got to put that other person before you. That's when you know you found the right person, when you're willing to put them before yourself. And I saw that in my stepdad. I mean, he was beaten down. He was watching the woman he loved deteriorate and die, but yet he was changing her diaper. He was combing her hair, doing whatever made her comfortable. And it was like a wake-up lesson for me. It woke me up so much that, I was really mad at myself for not knowing this. But you have to see something to learn. They say children, you don't tell children what to do. You show them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
They react by seeing. They don't react by hearing. They react by seeing. So I was still a child, and I saw, and I learned. And it was the best lesson I ever learned in my life. It really was.
It's a good thing as a human being to be able to adapt, because let's be honest, there are going to be people in similar situations who will see all of this, and the fun. I always say to people that I know is like, if you just look around, there's life lessons in front of you every second of every day. If your antenna is up and you take the knowledge that's right in front of you and you apply that knowledge, all you're going to do on a constant basis is improve yourself, improve your circumstances, and improve your life. There are people that I know that can't be named that were in very, very, very similar circumstances to what you just described that I know personally. And they did not learn anything. They did not change how they treated women. They did not change how they treated their children. They did not change their habits. They changed nothing. And all they did was consistently repeat the same terrible cycle and refuse to learn. You learned. That's why you're in a happy marriage. You learned. That's why you're doing what you love to do. You learned. And that's an important thing. You learned. Because a lot of people, they'll see exactly the same things you saw and not get it. Your antenna was up and your computer was on. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I read a book. And did you ever hear the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yes.
By Robert, I think it's
Kiyosaki.
Kiyosaki, yeah. The one thing that I took out of that book, obviously I'm too old now to apply his techniques. Young people should read that book.
Mm.
All the young listeners here to the S. Anthony show, get
Which
Rich
is
Dad,
roughly
Poor
a third
Dad.
of them.
Yeah. Get the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Trust me, it'll be the best $19 on Amazon you've ever spent in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Get the book and learn. And he said the most important thing I took out of that book was always surround yourself with people smarter than you. You'll never learn anything if you don't. You'll never learn anything if you don't. If I walk into a room and I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm doomed.
Mm.
I'm doomed. I mean, I want to learn something from somebody. That's why I watch these guys. Anytime I have a laborer come to my house, like I told you earlier about the plumber, I watch them. I want to learn. I crave education because I lacked it in my childhood. I skated through. I had so much turmoil going in my life in grade school and even in high school that it was just, I just wish I had a fair chance at an education.
Mm.
So what I had done was when my son was born, and a lot of you guys went to L.A., I think you and like 3-4 other guys I remember heading out there. I think some may had even left before you went out.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Go to L.A. If you want to make it, you got to go to L.A. Well, I'm sitting here with, now this is 88, 89. I'm sitting here with the 10-year-old son. How am I going to L.A.?
Exactly.
How am I going to abandon my son? I'm not going to do what my father did to me. I made sure that I never missed the time for father-son time on the weekends. Never missed the time. And no matter how much I partied the night before, I made sure that alarm clock went off the next morning and saw my son. Took him to games, taught him about sports, did all that. Put him in good schools. He graduated from Central High School, one of the best high schools in the city.
Hmm.
graduated from Temple. Now he is the youngest vice president in the history of this insurance company in Ballard Kingwood, making bucks where I know I'm going to get a good nursing home. I know I will get a good nursing home. So I just wanted to do the opposite of what my dad did to me, or my father. My dad did me right, my father did me wrong.
Hmm.
So getting back to time in the pandemic on what to do. How did you spend your time, Sandy? Besides you had your podcast going, correct?
I have two.
Yeah, so you were doing that during the time, right?
Yeah. It's a weird thing because I was preparing to go back on stage again because I hadn't done it in a while, and I was just about to get ready, and then all of a sudden, everybody stay in the house.
Yeah. Did you get approached? Did you get approached to do those Zoom comedy things?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, dude, is that
Uh,
the saddest thing you've ever seen in your life?
I mean, you don't. I can't even explain how many people. Like if I pop in and we're just hanging out or something like that, that's one thing. But and this is no shade to anybody. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody. But I rather do like if you have a podcast, I'll do that because we're talking and we could be funny and interesting. But I'm not gonna burn stand up. It took me 6 months to write. you know,
Yeah.
and I'm just not going to do that. I want people to come and see it. Because people go, "Would you like to come in and do the Zoom class?" Like, I write a full. I have two podcasts that I do. I interview people. On the other podcast is just me doing my thing. I put out a lot of content, and after a while, it's just enough already. If I do stand up, I'm going to stand up on a stage with people drinking beer and eating wings or something, and there'll be 400 of them, and then I'm going to tell them funny stories for an hour, and then I'm going to get my check and then go home. you know,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I just I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do it. No offense to people, and if they, and let me apologize right now because I know there are going to be people right now that I know when this comes out in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a whole lot of direct messages. So you don't like Zoom phone? You don't like Zoom comedy, man? I didn't say that. I'm just
Well,
saying
look,
it's not for
you,
me.
you, I brought it up, so whoever wants to come after me, and I'll tell you, it's disgusting. It's stupid. I don't want to see you standing in your living room with a spatula in your hand as a microphone, doing comedy to nobody. It's
Oh
not
God.
funny.
Oh
It's
God.
not funny, dude. It's just not funny. You got to interact with the people. You got to interact with the people. That's basically where my act has gone
Mm-hmm.
lately, and probably the last 10 years. Is now I heard your one interview. I forget the gentleman's name where you were talking about, and I don't do it either. About you saw comics breaking this guy's stones about him being heavy, and that you were never going to,
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that.
pick
Yeah.
on
Oh,
people. Well, see,
oh.
what I do is I talk with people. I
Mm-hmm.
don't pick on them. Like I would never do, the heavy jokes or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
or say, anything like that. But I mean, if you're wearing a sweater that looks like the Twister board, I might say something,
Yeah, but that's
or
yeah, but he could take the sweater off. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 exactly. So, and I found it. Believe it or not, S. Anthony, here's my little nugget that I learned over the years about messing with people. I had a comic that I open up for all the time. He's the biggest comic in Philadelphia right now, without a doubt. I'll give his name because he's not guilty. Joe Conklin. He's
I
the
knew
biggest comic in
exactly who you were
Philadelphia.
talking about. I know
Okay,
Joe.
yeah, I didn't even
I
have
know
to say
Joe.
his name. And I've been working with Joe since like the '90s, the early '90s. He did the speech at my wedding. Um, Joe can have anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people at his show,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to be clean, and you have to just don't drop the f bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So, to work in front of that many people, the demographic is perfect for me. of his audience. You got some older people, and you got some young guys, and that suits my comedy well, both ends, because I talk, try to be a little hip, but I'm not, but I try to be, and so you just you got to adjust with that. And I found if I want to like talk with people, like if I was to ask a guy his name and go, "Hey, what's your name?" We'll go, "Bill." I go, "Billy." If you put a Y, I found this out, and it works, man. If you put a Y at the end of somebody's name, it seems to bring them back to their childhood, and they're more accepting of what you're saying to them or how you're breaking their stones in a nice way. What's your name? Tom. Hey, Tommy, nice shirt. Yeah, boom. It's okay. They seem to, I don't know. I think my theory's right. I don't know. I would like other comics to try it. I've told other comics about it, and a few have tried it, and they said that they could see where I'm coming from on that. You just throw a Y on the end of somebody's name. What's your name, Nick? Hey, Nicky, what do you do for a living? Boom. They're willing to talk to you. It's not like, oh no, the comic's going to pick on me.
Yeah. Well, the thing I noticed was, and the story you're referring to with that podcast, it was just that it was at the Comedy Factory outlet, and if you remember
The
the Comedy
hell?
Factory outlet, you standing by the bathroom door, you could
Yeah.
see the people's faces, the sides of their faces, and it was this heavy guy with this cute little lady who was with him. It was obviously there was a new relationship, and when the guy was working him over, I was looking at his face. The audience can't see his face; they see the back of the head, so they don't know that this guy's basically ripping this guy's soul out,
Right.
right? And I'm going,
Yeah.
oh god, and I was never a mean enough comic. I never. To me, it didn't make sense. It was like this person paid $15 to get in here. He didn't come in here to have me destroy him for an hour, and so I made that decision. Keep in mind, I'm not even 18 yet at this point. I made the decision. I am never going to hurt my audience members by something I say to them. It's never going to happen. I'm not doing it. And
I,
yeah,
and the fact, the thing about that is comedy audiences, it's not like 98% of the people go out to see a comedy show. You have a certain percentage of people that come out to the show. Why do you want to lose somebody in that percentage? You think that guy's going to come back to another comedy show again? I doubt it. And if he is, he's going to sit in the back so far away nobody could see him, where he's not going to really enjoy it like he would have if he was like close to the action and stuff like that. You don't. You know what I hated the most about doing a show is after the show, people will come up to you and they go, "Oh, you were really funny," and the other guy's funny, but that one guy, it's like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I just want to hear a good show. I want to be a part of a team effort, good show to bring these, especially when I was running a comedy club, to bring these people back out next week. I don't want them cherry picking comics.
yeah.
And the thing about that is, I've always tried to mentor young comics. And I've been credited on a couple podcasts from some of them mentioning my name about being a mentor to them, and I really appreciated that. But I always tried to tell them, look, 15 minutes clean up front, just get through your set. Do not matter if you stutter, you mess up, you do whatever. Just get through your time. Just get through your time. Everything else down the road will come to you. It'll come to you. But right now, you got to maintain getting 15 minutes of clean material. You cannot start to show off foul language. That doesn't leave anything for the headliner.
I, was- I just remember doing the show. I'm sitting in the back. I'm watching the MC. I know the middle act is super clean, and to be honest with you, I really don't care. But I know the club cared. So obviously I'm not going to be on stage for another 45 minutes or so. So I'm sitting in the back, and I'm listening to the MC on stage, and I'm telling you, 8 seconds in, it's like
Yeah, yeah,
it was like an AK F bomb 47,
yeah, yeah.
and
That's
I was
Yeah,
like, oh my god, And I mean, let's be honest. You and I both started doing comedy in Philly in the '80s. Um, so we weren't new to hearing curse words during an act. Okay,
we
but
grew up
this
with them.
exactly. It was like it was, so like people call stuff people that people think that would say is dirty. It was like, he only said f bomb. He only had 10 f bombs in a half an hour. What are you talking about? I thought you said he was dirty,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So
My
and
aunt said more
yeah,
than that at Thanksgiving.
yeah. You want this effing turkey? Damn it! Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
But I never. I'm watching this. I'm listening to this guy, and I'm watching the lady behind the bar was angry because she's the one that recommended this group to come in. They were half the audience was like a Red Hat Society or something like that, or
mhm.
no, it was
Oh yeah,
B'nai
yeah,
no, and it was the other half was B'nai Breath. So that's the whole audience. It's 300 people, half of them, and he's on stage, F F F F F F, and he's see bombing is one thing, but hatred,
yeah,
and the owner comes up and goes, yeah, we're gonna do tag team for the rest of the show. You don't have to
yeah,
go back
yeah,
up there.
yeah, yeah.
you know,
I,
he
I've
says,
seen guys. I've seen guys not make the second show.
"Oh, this guy." Let me think. Yes, he did make the second show, but he did
Yeah, I.
five, and which
Yeah,
means I did 55. So,
right.
so it
You
was
get
like
any
I
extra
didn't mind.
money?
Yeah, I
You
got
get
extra
extra
money.
money?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If
You
I'm
didn't.
doing his set, I want extra money.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, I got extra. See, the thing is, what I found out was that I forgot who this cat was, but he owned both liquor licenses. So and the drinks were watered down. Uh, so and I know what I was getting paid, and so obviously I knew what the other two people were getting paid. So I knew that he had a big cushion. You know what I mean? There was a lot more money than he was paying us. But the simple fact is that this guy, I don't think he wanted. I don't know where this guy was. I don't think this guy was from out of town because he's the MC. But I got more bread, and I don't know if the feature got more bread. It's probably just me. And I didn't try to kill the guy. I didn't want to. I mean, I think the opening act was getting like $100 a show, so it wasn't like the. But I didn't want to kill the guy, and he didn't take any money from the kid, but he just wanted to give me a little extra money for doing the time. And but it's just really weird to watch. This is what I said to somebody else. We didn't realize how aggressive and tough the audiences were in Philadelphia because we grew up there. So when you would go other places, it was 55 million times easier every place else I went.